state representatives that help guarantee that we get a president elected, because, and back when it was founded, it was for the uneducated, because we had an epidemic of illiteracy and stuff, so not everyone could get the information to make an educated vote, so they had the most educated representatives, so then we could get a guaranteed not.
That is interesting. You actually hit two things in that answer, one of which I have thought about, the second one I have not thought about. I didn't catch the uneducated part before. That's not in the Constitution, correct?
No.
Right.
But that was the reasoning.
But you also said something else, not able to get their votes in. Mm-hmm. And you gotta go back to when, let's skip ahead and then come back. When was it created?
1787.
1787. How many states were states in 1787? Say that again? The colonies, essentially, maybe a couple more. So maybe 15, 13, 14, 15 states. Mm-hmm. And they're all spread out, all the way up from maybe Maine. Maybe Maine was a state at that point. At least Massachusetts was, and New Hampshire, and blah, blah. Down to, say, Georgia or Florida. And there was no interstate highway, and there was no electronic communication. The way you got information back and forth between places was by?
Word.
Or horse. I might have there was railroads at that point. I could be wrong. I'm not sure about when railroads went in. But usually horses. Horses took you. That's the whole. I'm from Delaware originally. There was a guy named Caesar Rodney, and one of my favorite stories about Revolutionary War history was Caesar Rodney riding his horse through the night to sign the Declaration of Independence in 1776. I mean, he wrote it's a fabulous little story. So yeah, transportation and getting information from place to place was so much harder. So the Electoral College was invented for a couple reasons. One was just convenience. You could have electors from in kind of standardized areas that were to vote for the president. Why not just let the people vote? I heard one vote. One vote was because they were illiterate and they couldn't vote. But that seems like a little bit of oversimplification. That's like saying the only oh no, go ahead.
No, it was one of the reasons.
One of the reasons.
Yes.
Love
not
it.
The reason.
Not the reason, but one of the reasons. Okay, good. Because I'm sure that not every early colonial was illiterate. And when you say illiterate, you're not being nasty. You're just simply saying could not read.
Yes, because most people were immigrants and they weren't of wealth, and mostly wealthy people up until that point were the ones able to afford books and read.
Is that true? The immigrants that came over were not mostly noble class? I know nothing about who emigrated here from Britain. I have no idea who came over.
Mostly outcasts.
Indentured servants too.
Indentured servants. Okay. Sent over to colonize.
Very few rich people actually came.
Okay, interesting. I did not know. Maya, go ahead.
The early colonies were originally thought of as sort of the garbage dump for humanity.
Well, I'm from Delaware. Not much has changed.
Yeah, that was, what was it called? That was in the book White Trash. And it slowly became like this image of a perfect place. But it really was, when we first started coming out here, absolute garbage dump that they could send out.
Hey, settle down. I'm from Delaware, remember.
Poor real estate did
You hear her back there?
there.
She's pissing on my state. I'm totally kidding, Maya. I love it. No, that's fabulous. I didn't know that.
As it exists.
So their job was to come over here, colonize the new world.
Sort of get the garbage dump back, in a nice condition so that, good people could come over and start making money.
So it was like way longer before actually rich people were here.
Okay, so we've got a couple reasons why we need it.
It's a process.
So, what's that?
One of the governors was Francis Bacon.
Oh,
He's like a noted
yeah.
philosopher too.
I'm trying to forget, was that New Hampshire, Boston? I can't remember. Let's not get too far ahead. The Electoral College to elect president was set up not in the Constitution for a couple different reasons. There's a couple reasons we heard of. Very good, very good. So, what is it exactly?
It's a process, not a place.
Okay, so it's not like located, it's not like Central Oregon Community College, which is on the top of this hill. It's the idea of how a president is elected due to electors, which we'll get back to here in a second. It is the collection of electors, which we'll get to in a second. Okay, good. Give me criticisms. Any criticisms you found? Connor, please.
The electors are corporate funded, so they're not for the people, they're for the companies.
Interesting.
So that can
I've heard about that with every other branch of government except the electors themselves. That's interesting because there's a term that I've heard with the Electoral College called faithless electors. Electors, generally speaking, vote the way their state votes. Which means if you're in, say, for example, Kentucky, most likely you're gonna vote red.
Yeah.
And the electors in Kentucky therefore cast their vote for the Republican candidate. If you're in California, very, very solid chance your state is gonna vote blue, which means that your electors in California are gonna vote blue. So it's interesting, that's one place I hadn't heard the corporate tie to. I can certainly see how that would be an issue. What's another criticism?
It's undemocratic.
Why? How could it be undemocratic? Go ahead.
I got the from Google, but it says permits the election of a candidate who does not win the most votes.
Okay, so this is actually what happened in 2000 and in 2016. This is and it's amazing, almost 3 years later, actually almost exactly 3 years later now, right? Because it was November 2016 when this happened. Remember 2019, and still people are talking about the 2016 election. Not many people talk about the 2000 election anymore. It's a long time ago. Some of you might not have been born actually in the year 2000. But when W beat Al Gore, it came down to literally Florida. And by the time they were done counting, Gore had one more popular vote. Let's make sure you understand what a popular vote is. When we in Oregon get our little mailer every 4 years to vote for president, and you fill in the bubble next to the person you choose, and you mail that in, and the county clerk records that vote, the popular vote for your candidate goes up by 1, your vote. So every one of us gets 1 popular vote. So very, very frequently, you'll hear a number thrown around in political circles recently that Hillary Clinton got 3 million more popular votes than Donald Trump did in 2016. That's true. 3 million more votes were cast for Hillary Clinton than were for Donald Trump. That's the popular vote. But elections are not decided by the popular vote. That's what the Electoral College is all about. The popular vote usually agrees with the electoral vote, but not always. In recent history, it's happened twice. In the year 2000, when W beat Gore in the Electoral College, but not in the popular vote. And most recently, with a lot of votes in 2016, where Clinton got 3 million more votes cast for her. But that's almost the entire state of Oregon. Just to put it in perspective, there's 4 million people in Oregon. So if 3 million of those all voted for Hillary, she still lost because Trump won the Electoral College. And we're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with the math of that soon enough. So by non-democratic, that's what you're talking about, Nick, I think.
Sure.
Okay, good. Ellie, go.
It's not as televised as the president's election for our representatives.
You're right.
We should have it televised so then we can actually we should treat it as if the president.
When you say not as televised, actually, the night of the election, it's pretty much running 24/7.
But how do we know when that is? It doesn't go up we know the exact day every single 4 years when the president's elected.
Sure.
And we know exactly all the information on all the candidates and everything is televised for weeks.
Yeah.
But if that's not really what's deciding the president because of the popular vote.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. I get what you're saying. Yeah, there's definitely, as somebody who's thought about this a lot mathematically, which is what this lab came out of, I'm troubled by that fact. It almost seems like there's so much information that goes into a black box, and then out pops these electoral votes. And the electoral votes sometimes don't represent what's actually going on. I get what you're saying. Thank you. We're going to address that today, I think. And Jonah, your point too. I promise we'll address both these things. Good. Thank you for these. These are wonderful inputs. I love this, what you put here. Okay, now, let's try to answer the next. Yeah, let's do 4 through 8. I think you can handle those now. 4 through 8 on your lab, either Googling or by memory.